Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you're having a good day today so far. Hope you had a good weekend. Mine was spent not feeling well. Um, I don't know if I've ever mentioned, I probably have mentioned that I have an ulcer, and every now and then it'll flare up really bad and really bother me, and it makes me nauseous. It makes my stomach hurt and just not feel good at all. And it might have something to do with drinking Red Bull. Probably not the best thing to be drinking. I have cut down on Red Bull a whole lot, but I maybe need to cut back some more. But at least it doesn't flare up like as much as it used to. It used to be really bad. I was nauseous like every single day for like a couple months. It was horrible. So I know I need to have a better diet. I need to eat better. Um, That's my problem. I like food. I don't eat a lot, but I don't eat healthy when I do eat. And I know I should take better care of myself and maybe exercise more. But man, I'm just so tired by the end of the workday, and I just don't want to do anything else. So, but I do. I listen the Scott Ford show. When I listen to him talk about like his workout regimen and the things that he eats and things like that. The last one that he did, he talked about how he gets up and he drinks 16 ounces of water, and then he works out, and then he goes for a 20-minute walk. And I'm like, man, I wish I had the energy to do that, and I could do it if I actually wanted to. I don't particularly want to do anything extra after working all day. But I was inspired. But I did it myself because I have made it to where I do intermittent fasting. I know Scott said he mentioned doing intermittent fasting, and I do that as well. And I have lost a lot of weight by doing that. And my goal was to get back down to the weight that I was before I got pregnant with my first child. And I'm only 5 or 6 pounds away from that. And so it did encourage me to start doing better. Um, but I haven't completely made that turnaround, and I really should. But it's so hard, especially when you're on the go all the time to eat healthier. You go grab something to eat. Usually, I go mostly what I eat. I don't go to fast food or anything for lunch. I'll go to the store and get me like a Stouffer spaghetti TV dinner, things like that. And I don't know how unhealthy those are, but they probably are. It's processed food. Anyway, one other thing that I wanted to mention is last Monday, the podcast that I posted, I shared it on Twitter, and Elijah Schaefer commented on it and said, "Good job." Now, whether he listened to the whole thing or he just thought maybe the title was good, I'm not sure. But regardless, he noticed it, and it felt really good for someone that does the same thing that I'm doing, but that's successful at it at this moment, noticed it and, told me that I was doing a good job. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, Elijah. Okay, let's start with the daily promise. It says, who shall also confirm you unto the end, that ye may be blameless in the day of our Lord Jesus Christ. 1 Corinthians 1:8. Fear not the wickedness of your own inclinations, O believer, for Christ will ever sustain you in spite of your weakness. Trust in him, lean on his might, throw yourself into the redemptive mercy of his hands, and seek not the power to remain of your own might. Have faith in the Lord, for he shall save you in that final day. And that is so true because I think people forget that even Christians are human, and we also make mistakes. We also sin. It's just the difference of when you sin, you are convicted of it and you repent and ask for forgiveness for it. You don't just keep living life normally. You make those corrections when you realize you've made that mistake. But I can't remember what verse it is, but it's a verse, and it says that, now God doesn't lead you into temptation, but he does allow Satan to lead you to temptation. And when that happens, God makes a way of escape for you. There's always a way for you to get out of that temptation. He will never allow you to be tempted without being able to walk away from it. So, Okay, I saw on Instagram a an article, and this article is by Vicky Spratt, and it was from 2020. So I don't know why it's circulating now, but it is. And Simply America reposted it. It's called The Dangerous Rise of Men Who Won't Date Woke Women. So I had to look at it, and uh, I laughed a lot. It's pretty comical to me. So let's take a look at it. It says, the word irrespective means saying or doing something without taking anything else into account. For example, irrespective of the fact that the cost of living has jumped, putting pressure on many people, the government plowed on with Brexit and argued that there would be no real economic impact. So I don't know if this person, I'm assuming this person is British, um, being that they're talking about Brexit and all that, but it doesn't matter because it happens there too. So it is fitting that white man of the moment, Lawrence Fox, who appeared on the BBC's Question Time program and told a BAME audience member that Meghan Markle has not been on the receiving end of racism before subsequently appearing on the cover of the Sunday Times to tell the world that he does not quote unquote date woke women, and the displaying an appalling understanding of history by calling the inclusion of a, I think it's pronounced Sikh soldier, and Sam Mendes's film 1917 incongruous as has irrespective tattooed on his arm. Okay, so I don't know who Lawrence Fox is. So he is an English actor and political activist who played the supporting role of D.S. James Hathaway in the British TV drama series Lewis from 2006 to 2015. He's a grandson of Robin and Angela Fox, a graduate of the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, and he first appeared in The Hole and thereafter in numerous films, television features, and theater productions. So that's probably why I don't know who he is, because I haven't seen that. But um, Elizabeth, The Golden Age, that's a movie that I want to see, that he's been in. But I don't recognize anything else. The Frankenstein Chronicles. But I haven't seen any of these other ones. Oh, he was in Jericho? I watched that. Oh, no, wrong one. Wrong Jericho. Okay, so that's who he is. All right, so continuing on. Did you hear that at the back, ladies? Lawrence Fox, who you perhaps only knew as Billy Piper's ex husband because you've never seen Lewis, does not date woke women who he believes are being taught that they are victims, irrespective of whether they are right or not. He thinks it is institutionally racist to tell the story of the First World War in a racially diverse way, irrespective of the fact that Sikh soldiers absolutely fought for Britain. Okay, so a Sikh soldier, here it says that they did fight in the same regiments as the British. 3 million soldiers and laborers from British Empire boosted British Army. Foreign soldiers had own regiments, but some served within British regiments. It follows criticism over incongruous inclusion of a Sikh soldier in a new film, 1917, which is a great movie. Um, so they were from foreign countries and they served alongside the British forces. So I'm not sure. Okay, so they're Indians. Um, so there you go. So that's the whole issue with that. I was curious what was behind that. So that's the issue with that. And maybe he's wrong. You know, I don't see any problem with um, including that in there if that is proven to be historically true. So I would say he's wrong in that opinion, but it's his opinion, so he has a right to say it. And he also doesn't believe in white privilege, neither do I, irrespective of the fact that he works in a painfully undiverse industry, was privately educated, and comes from a wealthy acting family, which is nothing short of a dynasty. Well, that's not white privilege, that's wealth privilege. That's what that is. Because there's people of color that were born into wealthy families that are privileged from that wealth. So it's not just white privilege. And I've talked about how that before, how it's completely, it's just, it's ignorant to think that. I'm white and I am, the only privilege I have is Christian privilege. I'm saved. I have that privilege of being, a part of the lineage of Jesus, adopted into that. So that's where my privilege comes from. Outside of that, I'm not very privileged at all. So I honestly would like to see anybody that says that the white people are privileged to come live my life for a week. Just live it for a week. You would not think that. Fox is denying racism and sexism, irrespective of whether or not they exist. It's nothing short of gaslighting. It's all very Donald Trump. And as you would expect, the whole debacle has lit a fire under anti woke poster boy Piers Morgan while gaining Fox thousands of extra Twitter followers. I could go over all the things he said. I could use data to prove how wrong he is. I could express concern for his mental health. I could make jokes about his behavior, but all of that would be to seriously miss the point. So, my first thought when I read this part was if you have data to back it up and prove him wrong, why would you not show it? You don't show it because you really don't have it. You can't prove him wrong on some of the stuff that he's saying about women being taught, the woke life, and it's ruining them. It really is. Feminism has ruined American society. Absolutely. So back it up, please. I hate it when people say, "Well, I could show you all the facts and figures to prove you wrong." Okay, show them to me. Well, you're missing the point. Okay. I could go, no, there's nothing funny about the things Fox or Wokey McWokeface, as he now wants to be known, is saying. It's also not particularly sad. It's dangerous. Oh no. He is just one very privileged man, and as a result of said privilege, has been given a platform. And he has used that platform to legitimize a bigger backlash against diversity and progress, which is unfolding every single day in less public corners of the internet. And just to be clear, diversity does not equal progress. It it doesn't. Just because you have a diverse industry doesn't mean you're going to make progress and be successful. Diversity should be the last thing you're looking for. You should be looking for the people who can do the job, do it well, and make it successful. And I'm just talking like generalizing anything. Not wanting to date woke women, far from being laughable, is actually one of the more insidious aspects of it. Spend an afternoon on any major dating app, and you'll come across generally white men saying openly sexist and misogynistic things. They might say, no psychos, or that they effing hate big eyebrows in their bios. And by and large, they also tend to hold extremely right wing views and see themselves as victims of liberal thinking. So I don't get where that's misogynistic or sexist to say you don't want to date a psycho. I've known some psycho women. I've also known some psycho men. And I don't think anybody wants to date a psycho. Um, in fact, as I was writing this, a dear friend sent me a screenshot of a guy she's just matched with who describes Jordan B. Peterson as his dream dinner guest. Yes, the same Jordan B. Peterson who thinks that white privilege is a Marxist lie and wants millennials to drop their obsession with social justice. I have to agree. I, meanwhile, recently had to block someone who, after matching with me, launched into a vile rant about how women are evil, only want sex, and treat men as though they are disposable. But that's so true of feminists today. That's exactly how they treat men. I've seen it, and I question myself as why haven't I would like to be remarried one day. Why am I having such a hard time finding somebody? Because I'm not a feminist. I'm very traditional. And if all the women out there are psychos and feminists and crazy woke women, then where are all these right wing guys that you say are all over these dating apps? Now, no, I don't use dating apps, but I'm just saying, I don't think it's as prevalent as she quite makes it out to be because I notice more uh, effeminate beta male uh, feminist. That's what I see most of. Real men are very hard to come by these days. When I asked him if he hated women, he replied that he had only moderate disdain for us before asking me whether I didn't want to date him because I'm actually pretty rough. All of this, of course, speaks not only to the presence of the very active online communities of anti feminist incels, but to the prevalence of the hideous and incorrect ideas they promote. It doesn't take magical thinking to see how men are radicalized by anti feminism. And the saying goes, quote, when you're used to privilege, equality feels like oppression. End quote. Okay. The reactionary influence of these ideas doesn't stop at dating, though. As the campaign group Hope Not Hate reported last year, a hostility towards feminism is feeding directly into far right movements online. They found that a third of young British people today believe that feminism is marginalizing or demonizing men and warned that these beliefs were a slip road to other far right ideas. But that is what feminism is doing. It is demonizing men, toxic masculinity. It is. This isn't just speculation. We know that the number of far right referrals to the British government's de radicalisation scheme Prevent has dramatically increased recently. In the year from 2017 to 18, they jumped by 36%, while referrals for Islamism actually decreased by 14%. Okay, so the official program to identify and help those deemed at risk of radicalization after it emerged that the suspect in the Hamas case, Ali Harbi Ali, was alleged to have been known to prevent observers. Okay. But what it seems to me is that if you are too far right, you are referred to this. And I don't know what it means by take on. It sounds like a re education camp. That's exactly what it sounds like. So, right now, Lawrence Fox, whether he realizes it or not, has just landed the biggest part of his life. He is legitimizing hatred and division, and yet he cannot be completely unaware of the role he plays. He has spoken about being radicalized himself on YouTube. Last year, he released an album called A Grief Observed, which is largely about his acrimonious split from Piper. When the Times interviewed him about it, he turned up wearing a pro Donald Trump MAGA hat, and it said it was a social experiment. He then told the interviewer that he spent a lot of his time watching YouTube interviews, which had totally radicalized him and caused him to embark on a crusade against woke culture and political correctness. He wanted, he said, to call one of the songs Me Too, but was prevented by his record label. Fox is a case in point that might start as playing devil's advocate by wandering the streets in a MAGA cap to provoke hipsters can quickly turn into something more sinister. The far right itself can be difficult to pin down because it isn't exactly a coherent global movement with a concrete set of ideas. Yes, well, not the far right. When they say far right, they just mean conservatives. That's exactly people like me. And yes, it is a global movement, and we do have a concrete set of ideas, traditional Christian American ideas. That is it. It largely exists online in Facebook groups, as Twitter accounts, on YouTube, and anonymous message boards such as 8chan, but every now and then their bile spills out dangerously into the offline world. And then it talks about, the El Paso shooter and Thomas Mayer, who killed um, the Labor MP Joe Cox. So it's basically saying that the conservative people are um, encouraging these people to go do mass shootings. Um, Susan Faludi wrote about the link between violence, anger, and anti feminism prophetically in her book Backlash: The Undeclared War Against American Women back in 1991, long before the turbulent times which have seen the rise to power of two male caricatures, Donald Trump to the office of U.S. President and the ascension of Boris Johnson as our Prime Minister. She warned, now this is from the book, when an attack on home soil causes cultural uh, paroxysms that have nothing to do with the attack, when we respond to real threats to our nation by distrusting ourselves with imagined threats to femininity and family life, when we invest our leaders with a cartoon masculinity and require of them bluster in lieu of a capacity for rational calculation, and when we blame our frailty in fifth column feminists, in short, when we base our security on a mythical male strength that can only increase itself against a mythical female weakness, we should know that we are exhibiting the symptoms of a lethal, albeit curable, cultural affliction. She also added, when the enemy has no face, society will invent one. For men like Fox, who feel they have been wronged somehow, that they are missing out on opportunities because, for once in history, they are being given to other people, women and people of color become the enemy. You can see it in the abuse and threats received by women MPs and in the wildly different treatment of Meghan Markle and Kate Middleton. While Middleton, who generally keeps herself to herself and says little, has become a pin-up heroine for traditionalists. Markle, who has spoken openly about sexism, racism, trying to use her platform for good, has been quite literally driven out of the country, condemned for being an outspoken snowflake. Well, she wasn't driven out of the country; they voluntarily left. Um, and I can see the difference as to why they didn't really like Meghan Markle. I understand it. She had to have known she was getting into something very significant and important by marrying a prince. And she should have known that her life would be radically changed by that decision. And instead, she goes up and breaks up the royal family. And I think Harry's going to regret it one day. Make no mistake, the far right is already capitalizing on Fox's words, gassing him up and turning him into an icon. He has added to their backlash and given it oxygen. Every time he is invited onto a TV or radio show to talk about it, that oxygen will cause the backlash to burn hotter and faster, irrespective of whether we're watching it or not. It's important not to trivialize this anti-woke, anti-woman backlash. In the end, it's only by paying attention to it that we can understand it and do something about it. It's funny that she says every time he goes on TV or talk show, or whether you're actually watching it or not, it's just spread everywhere. This was written a year ago, and I'm just now hearing about it. So it doesn't sound quite like that's what's happening. Um, and I don't even know who this man is. So I don't. Maybe it's happening in Britain. Maybe I don't know. Okay, I didn't mean for that one to take so long, honestly. Um, from the same website, I saw an article titled Maine Passes Nation's First Right to Food Amendment. Now, this was back in November, but I thought it was interesting, and I don't intend to read the whole thing, but it says a statewide referendum asked voters if they favored an amendment to the Maine Constitution to declare that all individuals have a natural, inherent, and unalienable right to grow, raise, harvest, produce, and consume the food of their own choosing for their own nourishment, sustenance, bodily health, and well being. It was an experiment not tried before by any state. Supporters used the campaign to make the case the amendment would ensure the right to grow vegetables and raise livestock in an era when corporatization threatens local ownership of the food supply. They positioned the amendment as a chance for Mainers to wrestle control of the food supply back from large landowners and giant retailers with little connection to the community. Opponents cast the drive as deceptively vague. They also said it represented a threat to food safety and animal welfare and could encourage residents to try to raise cows in their backyards in cities like Portland and Bangor. I don't necessarily think anybody's going to try to do that. Um, so, Senator Craig Hickman said it's always a good idea to secure and protect an individual right in the world we live in. Food is life. I don't understand why anyone would be afraid of saying so out loud in the Constitution. Maine enacted a food sovereignty law, the nation's first of its kind in 2017, and that law allows local governments to okay small food producers selling directly to customers on site. Other states around the country have passed similar laws in the years since Maine passed its law. The Maine Farm Bureau, the largest farming advocacy group in the state, opposed the new constitutional amendment. The group's leader said Tuesday the Bureau respected the will of the voters. Maine Farm Bureau is prepared to support Maine farmers as this amendment is enacted and, as always, stands clear in its resolve to protect and embrace food safety and animal welfare as a standard for all Mainers. Um, okay, so when I saw this, I'm glad I read it because I thought it would. When I saw a right to food, I didn't think that it was going to be like people can grow their own food and own livestock. They don't necessarily have to be farmers or be big farmers and have a lot of money. And that to me is fine. The title, the way it's read, made me think they made an amendment of right to food, as in, like, you're going to get food whether you work or not. And I thought, well, that's food stamps. We already do that. Um, but I see it's a different thing. And I don't know. I mean, I don't see the problem with allowing people to do that. People have vegetable gardens and things in their backyards, and you're saying in the way it seems is that in some places you can't do that. That's strange to me. It's your property. Why can't you? Why couldn't you grow your own food? So I kind of like it. I don't mind the idea. Um, and so that was just a real quick one because it's not what I thought. But I don't know. I just found this website, so I'm finding a lot of stories that are a couple months old that I didn't know anything about. So I wanted to mention it. And I wanted to mention the North Carolina Lieutenant Governor who called transgenderism filth, and he will not back down amid calls for resignation. Now, this is Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, and I'm curious what's happened over the last couple months. So, as far as I can tell, he's still the lieutenant governor. So he said he will not back down amid Democratic calls for his resignation after he said transgenderism and homosexuality should not be taught to children, referring to it as filth. Quote, "Let me tell you plainly right here and right now, I will not back down," Robinson said in a video posted to Facebook on Saturday. "I will not be silenced, and I will not be bullied into submission. I will continue to fight for the rights of our children to receive an education that is free from sexual concepts that do not belong in the classroom." And it's funny, the Democrats are bullying this man. This is a black man. And if this were a black man not backing down because of a leftist idea and the conservatives were telling him to resign, they'd be called racist and bigots. But you don't see that here because it's not racist that the Democrats want him to resign. It has nothing to do with the fact that he's black. It has to do with the fact that he's protecting children and not allowing sexual ideas to be taught to them in the schools. And that infuriates them because they want to make your children promiscuous. They want your children to be degenerates. Just go listen to my episode from last Monday. It's crazy. So I support this man for sure. So the Republicans' video came in response to condemnation from a White House official and other Democrats for comments he made in June at Asbury Baptist Church in Seagrove. Quote, there's no reason anybody anywhere in America should be telling any child about transgenderism, homosexuality, any of that filth, he said during the event in the video that was recently posted on social media. And yes, I called it filth. And if you don't like that, I called it filth, come see me and I'll explain it to you. There's no problem with that. The only people that should be talking to kids about this stuff are their parents, and only if they are ever accidentally exposed to it and you have to explain to them that it's unnatural, that it's wrong, that it's sinful. This is a parent's job. It is not the school's job. It's not the math teacher's job. It's nobody else's but the parents. But for some reason, since conservatives just kept conceding ground over the past several decades and allowing the Democrats to keep moving forward and forward and further to the left, we have now gotten to the point where the state believes that children belong to them. You just had them. You just pay for them. You just support them and take care of them. But as far as what they're taught and how they're groomed and molded, that's the state's job. And they're going to try to prevent parents from stepping into that. Deputy White House Press Secretary Andrew Bates, a native of North Carolina, referred to the comments as repugnant and offensive. North Carolina State Senator Jeff Jackson and North Carolina State Senator Wiley Nickel, both Democrats, are now calling on Robinson to resign, with Nickel saying the Republican is a, quote, a disgrace and an embarrassment to our state. And so they just posted a bunch of tweets. Well, I didn't mean to do that. And I've been saying it, and I don't care who likes it. Let me turn it up.
Those issues have no place in a school. There's no reason anybody anywhere in America should be telling any child about transgenderism, homosexuality, any of that filth. And yes, I called it filth. And if you don't like it that I called it filth, come see me and I'll explain it to you.
I like it. So I noticed when I was looking at the video, the source that the video came from is called Right Wing Watch. So Right Wing Watch is a project of People for the American Way, or PFA, dedicated to monitoring and exposing the activities and rhetoric of right-wing activists and organizations in order to expose their extreme agenda. Our researchers monitor dozens of broadcasts, emails, and websites and use their expertise on right-wing movements to analyze and distill that information for media, allies, and the general public. By shedding light on the activities of the right-wing movement, we help expose the risks its extreme and intolerant agenda presents to our country. We do not endorse the views of groups that we report on. People for the American Way is a progressive advocacy organization founded to fight right-wing extremism and defend constitutional values including free expression, religious liberty, equal justice under the law, and the right to meaningfully participate in our democracy. So, Robinson continued in his video, however, that the media and the left are trying to change the focus of his comments from education to the gay community and his alleged hate for them. I will fight for and protect the rights of all citizens, including those in the LGBTQ community, to express themselves however they want. That is their right as Americans, and I don't think that the government has any role in telling them otherwise. However, the idea that our children should be taught about concepts of transgenderism and be exposed to sexually explicit materials in the classroom is abhorrent. Robinson, the first black person elected lieutenant governor in North Carolina's history, has been a fierce critic of Democrats and the Biden White House in recent months. He's accused President Biden of working to turn the U.S. into a socialist hellhole. He's also slammed Democrats for labeling Georgia's recent voting laws racist for requiring identification for both in person and absentee voting. Am I to believe that black Americans who have overcome the atrocities of slavery, who were victorious in the civil rights movement, and now sit in the highest levels of this government, cannot figure out how to get a free ID to secure their votes? That they need to be coddled by politicians because they don't think we can figure out how to make our voices heard? Are you kidding me? The notion that black people must be protected from a free ID to secure the vote is just insane. It is insulting. Yeah, that's what I said, that it's insulting. It's making you, you're basically saying, hey, you, black community, you're ignorant, you can't do anything on your own, so let me, the rich, white, liberal feminist, do it all for you because I know best and I know better than you. And I don't know if they're just so self unaware that they don't realize that they're being racist when they say that. Or maybe they know and they don't care. Okay, so everybody probably already knows about David Hogg and who he is. But Louder with Crowder did an article, Brodigan, which is probably going to be a hilarious article, wrote an article, and it's titled, "Oh Dear, David Hogg Turns on Joe Biden, and Somehow the Jonas Brothers Are Involved." It caught my attention, and I thought this sounds so silly. I want to read it. So it says, David Hogg had a horrible 2021. He failed at the one useful thing he's tried doing with his life when his pillow company never launched. He's ending the year with the indignity of trolling Joe Biden on Twitter. At issue is this video with the Jonas Brothers and the White House's latest cringe-tastic attempt to use TikTok to appeal to the youths, to jab needles in their arms. Seriously, these videos are so horrible, it makes those of us who got our shots wish we could give them back. Let's watch.
Bing bong. Are you vaccinated? Yes, sir. Hey, yo. Who's the president, man? Who's the president? Byron. Who's the president? Byron. What do you want to tell Joe Biden right now? What's up, baby? Take me out to dinner.
Do we get it?
We got it.
Oh my God. Oh, the cringe is so real. I feel like I'd gotta shake the cringe off. And cringe is one of my least favorite words to use, but oh, wow. I'm going to post the link to this Twitter video in the description box so you can watch it, and I'm going to share it to my social media, but that's embarrassing. I'm like secondhand embarrassed for these people. All right, continuing on. What Joe Biden and his friends are doing is their take on a new TikTok fad, something called Sidewalk NYC. Okay, recorded a man who called Joe Biden Joe Byron, and TikTok went bananas over it. However, David Hogg does not think it's a hard hat holidays, respectfully. So David Hogg tweeted out about the video, "You can have all the celebs you want at the White House. It's not going to change the fact almost all of my friends just got emails about needing to restart their federal student loan payments, and kids are dying every day from gun violence. Oh, you poor thing. I'll have to pay your student loans back that you chose to pull out that you got no use out of." But yeah, the gun violence too. That's a big one. And it says, "Want our vote? Earn it." Okay. So maybe Hogg is just super jelly that the Jonas Brothers got to have a pajama party with the president, while David wasn't invited and was forced to stand outside. So then he tweets, "The ugliest Christmas sweaters bring the ugly truth behind gun violence. This year, 3.260, is that 3,260? Because it's a period, not a comma. Bright futures were lost because of gun violence. We keep fighting so these preventable deaths can be a thing of the past." Oh, yeah, it is 3,260 kids. Okay, well, in the tweet, he put a period. Side note, it's adorbs how many youngins actually thought Joe Biden was going to erase all their student debt. They are all big mad about it. Perhaps the younger generation will rethink spending 100 grand on a ridiculous gender studies degree and choose to go learn a trade instead and do something useful with their lives. One day, the White House will acknowledge David Hogg exists and tell him that he's pretty. It's just not today. I just thought that was interesting. That was a very cringe-tastic video for sure. The the way that they're trying to reach out to the younger generation, I maybe they are self-unaware that it's I don't think it's working. I pray to God it's not working, but who knows? Okay, let's talk about Elon Musk here for a second. Says here from the Daily Wire that Elon Musk for chairman of Federal Reserve starts to move. On Thursday, two prominent conservative economists championed the idea of making Elon Musk the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board. Speaking on Fox News, Larry Kudlow, the former director of the National Economic Council of the United States, joined Forbes media chairman Steve Forbes to push the idea. Kudlow asked, so why doesn't Jay Powell and the Fed have the backbone to take aggressive action to curb record high inflation? By the way, if they don't, it could derail the whole economy. For all these reasons, as I said last night, I prefer Elon Musk as the Fed chair, as Newsbusters reported. So Forbes echoed, I'd vote for his confirmation, after Kudlow stated, now to me, you're against the Build Back Better bill. You're against the electric vehicle subsidies, and Elizabeth Warren hates you. Those are grounds to be Fed chairman. Forbes responded that Musk understands the real world. He understands what it takes to get things done. These people don't. They think you turn on a switch and voila, it happens. On Wednesday night, Kudlow stated, I've got a couple of thoughts on today's wussy Fed announcement that they're kind of going to move faster on tapering bond purchases, and there might be 3 little bitty rate hikes next year. And oh yeah, Jay Powell told a press conference he was confident inflation would drop to 2% by the end of next year. Really? Want to bet? On that bet, I'm going to take the under. He cited Senator Joe Manchin stonewalling President Biden's horrendously expensive Build Back Better plan and calling for a halt to quantitative easing, the printing of new money. He noted, but the Jay Powell Fed has been nosing in favor of more federal spending, haven't they? The Fed is still enabling massive government spending by buying up the debt and pumping up the money supply. He later launched into his approval of Musk as Fed chairman. Finally, I have some unorthodox ideas for a new Fed chairman if Joe Manchin won't take the job. Manchin would probably be my first choice. How about, hold on to your seats, Elon Musk? Elon Musk, Time Magazine's Man of the Year. How could I say such an outrageous thing? I think he's very smart and very savvy. The mere fact that socialist Elizabeth Warren is attacking him for not paying his fair share of taxes by itself is a fabulous endorsement of Musk's philosophy and business prowess. Musk, who is the biggest electric vehicle car seller in the country, get this, he has publicly said he does not want electric vehicles or batteries to be subsidized by the federal government. He continued, how about that? He's the biggest maker. He doesn't want Uncle Sam's money. Indeed, he's come out against the entire reckless tax and spend that regulate Biden's policies. How's that? Completely unlike GM and the other unionist car makers. And incidentally, one last point, Musk has been selling about $3 billion worth of stock at the prevailing capital gains tax rate of 23.8%. Now, the Musk stock sale would generate or will generate $714 million of revenues to the federal government. It's got to be one of the biggest revenue windfalls in Uncle Sam's history, at least from one person. Now, that's called paying your fair share, Liz Warren. Anyway, the last thing that I wanted to do was read an article by Brad Schaefer from the Daily Wire called China's Next Step Toward World Domination. Because I think we still need to be paying very close attention to China just because there's so much other things going on. We shouldn't take our focus off of that. So it says, I deal in energy for the same reason I would have otherwise gone into medicine. Because, like healthcare, people will go without a lot of other extras before sacrificing electricity, fuel, transportation, heat, AC, etc. Nations are no different. As I have said many times, The history of 20th century warfare has been inextricably intertwined with the drive for finding and securing sources of energy. Excuse me. When he became First Lord of the Admiralty in 1911, Winston Churchill led the transitioning of the Royal Navy from coal-fired to fuel-burning ships of the line. Suddenly, the need to secure sources of oil far from the British Isles led to Great Britain's wider presence on the high seas, something that did not go unnoticed by the Kaiser in Germany, helping push the two powers into a disastrous conflict. In 1941, Japan, suffering under the crippling impact of a U.S. oil embargo, decided they had no choice but to invade the oil-rich Dutch East Indies. But to do so unmolested, they also had to take out the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor and capture our military bases in the Philippines, the latter of which stood astride the shipping lanes. And so the USA was plunged into a world war. In 1942, Hitler sent his powerful army group south onto the steppes of southern Russia and into the is it Caucasus region in a drive to capture its petroleum facilities. He would lose an entire army and with it the war in the burning rubble of Stalingrad. As I wrote in the Daily Wire a while back, China is now the latest player on the Find the Energy game board. But unlike the myopic Tojo or megalomaniacal Hitler, Xi Jinping is no fool. One must assume that he has studied the past and considered how best to address China's Achilles heel, which is a lack of proven energy reserves within its borders, unlike its arch rival, the United States. So while we debate pronouns at home, while 20 years of blood and treasure are squandered in pointless nation building folly abroad, China has been slowly, quietly establishing a presence in Africa and the region of the Indian Ocean. According to the IEA's Africa Energy Outlook, Africa's share in the global energy mix is set to soar from 5% today to 25% by 2040. Over 40% of global gas discoveries from 2011 to 2018 have been in Africa. Chinese investments and contracts in sub-Saharan Africa totaled $299 billion from 2005 to 2018, according to the China Investment Global Tracker. And in 2018, Chinese President Xi Jinping vowed to invest a further $60 billion into African nations. But once you have a foothold in the next energy revolution, how best to secure it? That is the next step, which is why, with very little media coverage, U.S. officials reported that Beijing is actively seeking a permanent naval base on the west coast of Africa. They could be eyeing Equatorial Guinea's port city of Beta for the base. The report said that Beta or Bata, I don't know, already comes with a deep water port that had been upgraded by China Road and Bridge Company from 2009 to 2014. It makes sense. With so much capital poured into such a tumultuous part of the globe, China would want a hands-on military presence in the region to secure its investments. But there is a deeper, more ominous takeaway from such a venture should it come to pass. Since the turn of the last century, the Atlantic has been within the United States' sphere of influence. The idea of a rival naval base right on the other side of the pond is disconcerting and destabilizing. Tensions between the U.S. and Communist China are only going to intensify in the next few years as the Chinese achieve economic and military parity. Indeed, if ever there was a time for Beijing to flex its muscle, it is now. The United States has probably never been this lacking in resolve since the fall of Saigon in 1975. China watches with glee as we are humiliated in Afghanistan, our streets burn, our military concentrates on racial theory and gender fluidity rather than waging violence on our behalf, our government from DC to the state capitals seems unable to come up with a coherent or proportional response to the COVID epidemic of Chinese origin. The lower and middle classes reel from skyrocketing inflation, which will only be fueled by a budget obliteration, dollar crushing, build back better, print and spend orgy never before seen in the annals of governance. And all is that annals? And all of this while being supervised, in theory at least, by an enfeebled, mentally failing, near octogenarian who is clearly just a puppet dangling on the string of lobbyists, left-wing activists, and cynical party bosses. What better time to flex Chinese muscle than now? Fine, let the U.S. fixate on Putin and faraway Ukraine if they like. All the better. China has always had its eyes on expanding its presence in the Western Pacific and in the process absorbing free Taiwan as it has Hong Kong. But its latest machinations across the Atlantic from our own shores represent a quantum leap in Chinese hegemony. Hegemony? I don't know. The United States has already seeded manufacturing, rare earth, and other industries vital to not just economic prowess and diversity, but national security to Chinese control. Now the Biden admin seems hell bent on rolling back our ace in the hole, energy independence, and export capacity. Had they searched far and wide for a Manchurian candidate to do their bidding, the CCP could not have done better than the stupefied Joe Biden at the titular helm of their adversary's floundering ship of state. No wonder they have chosen this moment to move to secure their Atlantic flank and further box us in. What is the Biden admin going to do about it? Do Americans want to see their children die in yet another overseas war run by incompetents who are never held responsible for their actions? Ask the Taliban. All is not lost, though. The Biden admin has shown some backbone as of late by barring U.S. diplomats from attending the Beijing Olympics. Ouch! After all, what good is it to Xi as he works diligently to tip the scales in not just the Pacific, but the Atlantic as well in his quest to make the 21st century the Chinese century, when in the process he loses his chance to have a photo op with Pete Buttigieg? Anyway, I thought that was interesting because I have noticed that we have stopped paying attention to China. Nobody's really talking about it anymore. And I think that people need, it's a big deal. And I don't know if people really quite understand how bad it is for China to have any type of power because they're evil. They literally are evil. So it's very important to keep paying attention. All these other things, they're not going to matter if China is allowed to take power. It won't matter anymore. So I think we're paying attention to the wrong things. I truly do. And I think we need to do better. But I'm going to leave the episode right here. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Please go to Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple, subscribe to the podcast. Leave me a comment, that would be great, or a review. And then go to my YouTube channel. You can go watch my videos, like them, share them, subscribe to the channel. Please, that would be I would be so appreciative. And what a great Christmas gift that would be to get more subscribers. And then hit the notification bell so you know every time I upload a new video. I know I've been all over the place with telling you guys I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then things come up and I can't. What I can guarantee is a once weekly podcast on Mondays. I can absolutely guarantee that. Anything beyond that is just going to be extra. And there's something else I wanted to do before Christmas, but I'm not going to say anything because in case it doesn't happen, but I'm going to do my best to get something out that I've been working on, and I just got to find time to sit down and record it. So, anyway, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and God bless.